Hey everyone, back again, video 2. Doing it a little sooner than I thought that I might. Just 2 days in a row. I don't know how often that'll happen, but let's start by introducing the theme of the video. So, it wasn't my idea. My wife had the idea of listing favourite and least favourite songs from each of the Beatles albums, which is going to be quite difficult as someone who picking favourites, is probably akin to picking, favourite children and stuff like that, which sounds dramatic, I know, probably a bit dramatic, but yeah, I'm going to struggle. I've listened through, sort of had a flick through to sort of remind me of the songs that I know a little less well, just prior to this video. So just to refresh my mind, so I'm not making any ill-informed decisions. But without further ado, let's start with Please Please Me. And I'm just going to do the sort of the official albums, excluding compilations and bootlegs and greatest hits and stuff like that. So just Please Please Me through to Let It Be. So Please Please Me, my favourite song on that album is Do You Want to Know a Secret, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is a George Harrison song, one of his earlier efforts. I might be totally wrong, but I get the feeling it sounds a bit Georgy. I just think it's the most brilliant song on the album, so that's why. Least favourite on that album is Ask Me Why. Yeah, I'm going to feel guilty picking a least favourite for all of these, so don't read too much into it because it was a difficult decision, but it's just the most sort of, album tracky, kind of fitting into the album. It works really well, but maybe as a standalone song, probably the weakest on the album, in my opinion. So moving on to With the Beatles, my favourite on there is You've Really Got a Hold on Me, which is the sort of the slow, I'd almost kind of describe it as like a drunken, slurred, sort of the really slow, meandering piano introduction, and sort of it pops up throughout the song as well. I really love. It's, I don't know, it sounds more kind of old-timey. I know, this With the Beatles was that 63 as well? So it was one of the older albums, but just that one sounds even older than that. You can hear there's sort of influences from, sort of American 50s, sort of the whole Fats Domino and that sort of era of music. You can hear that's very much from there. It's quite an Americanized song, which I think is a damn good one. Least favourite on With the Beatles, I Want to Be Your Man, which I think is actually it's a great song. It's fast, it's punchy, but similar to the the one I mentioned for the previous album, probably is just, I don't know, there's the least content in it, probably the most I don't know, two-dimensional, I suppose. But yeah, no credit away from the song. That's my least favourite one, probably. Now, Hard Day's Night. My favourite on that album is Can't Buy Me Love, which, one of the more popular ones, probably hugely overplayed, but I just think it's a classic. So I've picked that one. You'll see later, it's not all the classics that I pick. In fact, a couple of the classics actually make it in my least favourite selection spot. So move on to that controversy later. But yes, Can't Buy Me Love, favourite from Hard Day's Night. Least favourite on that one is I'm Happy Just to Dance With You. There is actually, on Hard Day's Night, there's a couple of songs that actually I think are weaker. I don't know, of the early albums, I think, the sort of the '65, sort of when they were putting out Rubber Soul and Revolver and stuff. Of the earlier albums, I think Hard Day's Night is actually one of the weaker ones myself. But least favourite on Hard Day's Night is I'm Happy Just to Dance With You, which is, it's a nice song, but I suppose that's all it is, it's just sort of nice really. Sorry for all the Hard Day's Night fans out there. Now, Beatles for Sale. Of all of the albums, this is the one I sort of know least. I try and sort of do it in phases so I don't just listen to everything and burn myself out. This is probably the album that I've looked into and listened to the least. But my favourite on there is Kansas City, which is sort of a medley. I think the second part's Hey 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 Hey. Paul McCartney says it a lot better than I do. It's a great sounding song. This one is very a sort of 50s, late 50s American. You could almost imagine it being like a Chuck Berry or a Fats Domino or you know, Chubby, you know, like a cover of one of the classics. I think it's a Beatles original, I might be wrong, but it gives me sort of the same sort of feeling as it, you know, the earlier ones where they did lots of covers of you know, American bands. It could well be one of those, that's how it sounds, but it probably isn't. Least favourite, Words of Love. Just had to pick out of, you know, it's, I don't know, if I listen to it a lot more, I'd probably like it a lot more, but yeah, it's just a bit slow really. Next we've got Help. My favourite is You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, which is, I'm pretty sure, John's mostly. I think it might have been about Cynthia when they got married. Well, I've heard a couple of different things, either about when he married Cynthia and it had to be kept quiet because obviously if all of the crazy young teenage fans find out that one of them's married, suddenly I suppose the appeal goes away. So I'm sure it was all of their management's decision to keep it quiet, to I don't know, not to get in the way of the frenzy. But also apparently people have said that it could have been written about Brian Epstein, who of course was gay, and it's sort of I don't know, nice sentiment. Obviously it's a shame that, you know, that the points had to be made, but I suppose in those days it was I don't know, it was, well, illegal, shockingly, so it's I'm sure it would have been a nice little gesture of the boys to sort of write it for Brian and sort of, I don't know, I think it sort of points out, if it is about Brian Epstein, I think it points out the sort of the absurdity of having to hide it away because of, you know, the law of the land, which I think is, it's ridiculous. Yeah, thank God we've moved on, eh? But yeah, that's just a nice little story, I think, about that. And my least favourite, well, controversial, please don't send me any hate mail for this, least favourite song on Help is Yesterday, which I can almost hear the cries of horror as I speak actually, but it's just down to the fact that I think I've heard it probably 5,000 times, probably not, but I feel like I've heard it 5,000 times, and it's just one that I feel like I don't really have to listen to all that regularly. I do skip it most of the time when it comes on, but sometimes it catches me at a good time and I'm happy to hear it. Now, Rubber Soul, when I first was, I've always been a fan, but when I was first really getting into it, this was the album that I think I loved the most, so this is really difficult. Picking a least favourite is the most difficult because of course I treasure all of them, but my favourite I would have to say is Norwegian Wood. If you put a gun to my head, I would pick that one. I just think it's just a brilliant song. I don't want to waffle too much because I you know, do get conscious that you know, some of it's pretty boring stuff just listening to some guy talk about his favourite songs, but Norwegian Wood, I Won't Waffle Anymore, that's my favourite. Least favourite, under much duress, I would have to say The Word. It's very of its time. You know, it sounds like it's right at home in The Summer of Love, which was a few years later. But yeah, very hippified. Probably the least sort of important song on the album, I suppose. Not that it's not important, but just the least essential to the album, I suppose. And Chloe's favourite, my wife, is I'm Looking Through You, which we have lots of fun singing and dancing around to that one. I don't think she pays too much attention to the words though, because it's a bit of a miserable one in terms of the lyrics, but we have fun listening to that one. And Revolver, favourite song would have to be And Your Bird Can Sing, which I think is criminally underrated. I suppose there are always going to be those songs that are underrated when they're sort of on albums as brilliant as, you know, Revolver is. I just think from forums and, you know, conversation online, YouTube and Instagram and things like that, I just think it's often the most overlooked. But, you know, obviously opinions often do clash like that. But yeah, And Your Bird Can Sing, I think it's the punchiest, most energetic song on the album. I think it's pretty brilliant. Least favourite, again, I can still hear the echoes of the cries about yesterday. My least favourite is Eleanor Rigby. Same reasons as yesterday, just heard it too many times. Honourable shout out to Tomorrow Never Knows as well on Revolver, which I've probably heard as many times as yesterday, but I just don't get bored of it. It's my dad's favourite Beatles song. I think it might be his favourite song, one of his favourite songs, full stop actually. He's not the biggest Beatles fan, but high praise nonetheless, to make it to his all-time list. And I think, yeah, it's one of my all-time favourites as well. Outside the context of the Beatles, I think it almost doesn't feel like a Beatles song, which I know sounds a bit stupid, but you know, I've probably got 10 Beatles songs that I definitely like more. But in the grand scheme of all songs ever in the world, it's somehow is in the top up there, definitely. Still, very cryptic sentence to end on there, but I'm going to finish it there. Don't want to make the video too long, and I can probably talk even more about the later albums, so I'll probably save you all for save you from being bored to death by that until part 2, which I'll probably film right away, just to save the suspense and not have you waiting weeks and weeks for it. So thanks for watching part 1, and I'll be back for part 1 in a bit. Peace.